This is a good time to admit that I got a 1 on my AP US history test.
Oh, yes, that's right.
I never took AP US history.
And it shows. Welcome to Naked Apple's Slice of History.
Welcome.
Yeah, it's been a minute.
Here we is.
Been a minute since we've done a full one of these. I think the Federalist Papers was the last one.
I think
When
so.
was that?
Beginning of the year?
Yeah, somewhere around there.
Yeah. And then we decided we haven't done another one because it's a lot to do the Federalist Papers. That was intense. So if that suddenly gets a big spike in it, maybe we'll consider doing another one. Maybe.
That's fair.
That's fair. This is all dependent on you. This time, though, Slice of History is going into the price of freedom.
Price is right, Bob.
Thanks, Adam Sandler. The price of freedom. Those that were willing to sacrifice their lives, fortunes, and sacred honor for the betterment of their country, their fellow man, and so on and so forth. People that actually are/were brave, as opposed to people who follow social norms and call themselves brave for being coddled in said social norm. And this is Keith's first go at all this stuff, so depending on how you handle this, depends on if you're in the next episode.
Well, thank you for that.
So no pressure.
No pressure.
No, you're fine. So we'll start. These will be in mostly chronological order. All links will be provided, so you can go more in depth into them if you so desire. But we're starting off with some of the founding fathers. Yes.
The important thing to remember when doing a slice of history is make sure to throw Trevor off as much as you can.
Like now, for instance.
Because if you just let him sit and read, he tends to go a little bit monotonous.
You got me monologuing. You sly dog.
Oh, that was Incredibles.
Incredible. Incredible.
Does that count as a
Yes.
point? Yes.
Yes. 1 point for Keith.
1 point for Keith.
Score,
I am good at
the
this
score
founding
currently
father
stands
stuff.
at 1 point Keith, 20 points Mike. I sense a comeback.
I award you 5 Frank points. Oh, you guys haven't read those books.
Negative.
They're fantastic. There's a magical axe named Frank.
A magical axe.
And he doesn't deal any damage, but he's bloodthirsty, and he loves it when people use him to smack things that he can't actually hurt. And he's very, very self-absorbed, and he awards people Frank points when they do things that make him happy. But he doesn't actually track how many Frank points he's given to people. And there's another AI in the book that starts tracking his Frank points and handing them out as currency. And he gets mad about it because he doesn't want her to devalue his Frank points.
Welcome to battle, where the hits don't land and the Frank points don't matter.
That's right. That's right. The main character learns an ability called Repel that he can use with anything that he's like any object that he's hitting something with.
Uh-huh.
And so he like goes around and he pulls Frank out and smacks people with Frank and then uses Repel so that he actually like throws people away.
So Frank is useful in a way.
So and then once he starts doing that, Frank starts yelling "Get Franked" when he hits people.
This sounds like it needs to be a movie now.
I know. It's a great book. It's a great book. Great series of books, actually.
Which is?
It is The Ripple System,
Okay.
I believe is the name of the series.
There you go. Now you have a book series to
Now
read.
you have a book series to look up. The Ripple System.
Any Hooters.
Starts with the Black Sand Baron, I believe was the first book.
Any Hooters.
Yes. Continuing
Of
on.
the 56 men who signed the Declaration, 12 fought in battles as members of state militias. 5 were captured and imprisoned during the Revolutionary War. 17 lost property as a result of British raids. And 5 lost their fortunes in helping fund the Continental Army and state militias battle the Redcoats. Now, these men all understood that signing the Declaration of Independence meant that they were signing their lives over to the king should they be captured, because they were committing the highest level of treason possible against the King of England, which was saying, screw you, we're doing our own thing.
Yeah.
Kings don't like that very much. Anyways, the entire South Carolina delegation, Thomas Hayward, Edward Rutledge, and Arthur Middleton, all faced hardships where Thomas Hayward, he presided over the trial of several loyalists who were found guilty of treason. The prisoners were summarily executed in full view of British troops. He joined the South Carolina militia as a captain of artillery. Edward Rutledge also served in the state militia. At age 26, Rutledge was the youngest signer of the Declaration of Independence. After returning home from attending the Second Continental Congress in 77, he joined the militia as captain of an artillery battalion. Both Rutledge and Hayward aided their country in the battle at Point Royal Island, where they helped General Moultrie defeat British Major William Gardner and his troops.
Port Royal, huh?
Port Royal, Mr. Smith. Arthur Middleton, however, he took up arms against the British during the siege of Charleston in 1780. His fellow signers, Hayward and Rutledge, also fought in the battle. Upon the surrender of Charleston, all 3 men were captured by the British and were sent to a prison in St. Augustine, Florida, which was reserved for people the British thought were particularly dangerous, like signers of the Declaration of Independence, for example. They were held there for almost a year before being released en route to Philadelphia for a prisoner exchange in July 1781. Hayward almost drowned. He survived his fall overboard by clinging to the ship's rudder until he could be rescued.
That's rudderly ridiculous.
During the occupation of Charleston, Commandant Nisbet Balfour ordered the seizure of many estates in Charleston, including those owned by Hayward and Middleton. During his imprisonment, Hayward's wife died at home, and his estate and property were heavily damaged. Rutledge's estate was left intact, but his family had to sell many of their belongings in order to make the trip to Philadelphia to reunite with him after his release. Middleton's estate was left relatively untouched, but his collection of rare paintings was destroyed during the British occupation of his home. Yeah.
You know what? I hate this guy so much, I'm going to take down all of his wall paintings.
Screw this guy in particular.
That's what I'm going to do to get back at him.
Thomas Nelson Jr.
Freaking British.
He inherited a huge family fortune, and his stuff was left relatively unscathed. And while he was the governor of Virginia during the Battle of Yorktown, so the very last battle of the Revolution, he ordered American troops to fire on his mansion that was being commandeered by General Cornwallis and his men.
Whoa.
So he told his troops, hey, Cornwallis is in my house. Well, we'll be sure to kick him out. So, no, blow up the house.
My house has been taken by enemy combatants. Oh, we'll go recover it. Level it.
Burn it.
I want it on the ground along with everybody inside of it.
I want you to erase these coordinates. Those are your house. I said, I didn't ask what the target was. I said I want these coordinates deleted.
Wow.
Yes. Many others, George Clymer, British troops destroyed his home. Let's see. John Hancock, the largest signature on there, served in the militia as Major General in 78. He was put in command of approximately 7,000 men during the Rhode Island campaign. That campaign was ultimately unsuccessful because the French failed to carry out their end of the bargain. Of course. Let's see. There was one more I wanted to read of all these. Joseph Hughes, with his fortunes built on trade, Joseph Hughes of North Carolina was a vigorous proponent of the decision in the First Continental Congress to cut off all imports and exports with the British. This, of course, had the effect of drying up his wealth. Interestingly, Hughes also renounced his Quaker religion in order to support the war. So it was that important to him that he cut off his own source of wealth. Lyman Hall, the British destroyed the home and plantation of Lyman Hall of Georgia. Luckily, his family escaped before the British arrived and moved up north to be with him. Those are just a handful of the stories of the 56 signers, where they all pledged, and some actually did give their lives, fortunes, and sacred honor. Some of them gave what today would be millions, hundreds of millions of dollars, if you translate it to today's money, to support the war effort, which left them penniless at the end of the war. Because, again, something more important than themselves and their fortunes in order to have a better life for their, the Declaration? Their posterity. Thank you. Another one from the Revolution. Nathan Hale. Sound familiar? Anyone?
Yeah.
Bueller?
Yes.
Yes. Keith doesn't know who Nathan Hale is.
No.
You're about to.
For shame.
You're about to. The year 1776 is when the Declaration of Independence was signed, but it's also the year that Nathan Hale gave his life for America. He was a school teacher. He wanted to serve his country. Military intelligence about the British was badly needed, which meant doing undercover work as a spy. He volunteered for the assignment. His friends warned him that he would fail, for he did not know how to lie, often a requisite trait for a good spy.
Secret agent man. You know, I used to think that song said Secret Asian Man.
Yeah, I thought that too.
I sang that a few times as well, I will admit.
No, somebody at
I
school
love
told me
Chinese people
that.
too, but come on.
Someone told me that at school, and I'm like, whoa, are you serious? And then for the next few months, I believed that. Yeah.
Yeah. Back before the internet could really tell you the truth if you searched for it.
Yeah.
Secret Agent Man makes so much more sense.
It's true.
Than Secret Asian Man does.
I was in high school. I knew nothing.
Next, you're going to tell me that the Styx song about the Mr. Roboto doesn't say anything about margarine. The margarine man.
Domo arigato, Mr. Roboto?
I am the margarine man.
Oh.
With parts made in Japan. It's modern.
All right.
Modern.
Anyway.
Well, anyway, tangents.
Sidetrack successful. Anyways, Nathan Hale was returning to the American Army with some intelligence he had about British movements in the area when one of his relatives turned him into the British, who captured him on September 21st, 1776. The British executed him the following day, denying his last request for a Bible to comfort him. His last words before he was hung, "I only regret that I have but one life to lose for my country."
Oh.
Nathan Hale. Just a
So
school
that was
teacher.
Nathan Hale.
Yes, that was Nathan.
Okay.
Hale.
On to probably Mike's favorite founding era person, John Paul Jones.
Jean Paul!
John Paul Jones. The man, the myth, the legend, all of the above, was arguably the greatest ship commander ever.
Yes. Yes, he was. He's not exaggerating when he says the man was a myth and a legend.
He's known as the father of the U.S. Navy. He was born in Scotland, so you got that going for you.
And to this day, he's the first Navy man and only Navy man that was actually worth an entire Navy.
Yeah, only because he captured an entire Navy.
Yes.
So he started off his early life was on a merchant ship at the age of 13, going back and forth. Eventually, he got involved in the slave trade, and he realized slave trade is stupid. So he was against that almost right away. In 1773, Jones was caught in a very difficult situation. He murdered a mutinous sailor on the island of Tobago in self-defense because Jones believed he would not receive a fair trial. He fled to America. It was there he added the last name Jones to conceal his identity because he was just John Paul before.
Jean Paul.
John Paul Jones. Welcome to Port Royal, Mr. Jones.
I believe that joke in that is actually a reference to him.
I would not be surprised if it is.
But yes.
That would be awesome.
Because he is the kind of man that would sail in on a boat and step off of the crow's nest onto the dock.
It costs a shilling to tie a boat at the dock. What do we say to 3 shillings? And we forget the name.
Welcome to Port Royal, Mr. Jones.
Luckily for Jones, the American colonies were too busy stoking the flames of war with the British to have noticed his past. In 1775, the American Revolution broke out, and Jones, who could easily recall Britain's cruel treatment of the Scots, sided with the colonists and joined the new Continental Navy.
It's also said that he wore a kilt while he was on boats and would regularly hike it up to moon people as he sailed by.
Like I said, the man...
While
the myth,
screaming, "Feast your eyes!"
With great skill and temerity, Jones began attacking British ships off the American coastline and expanded his operations from there. He captained the USS Providence, which was not a large ship.
No, it was not.
I believe it was something around a 20-gun ship, maybe,
Yeah, something like that.
compared to British vessels, which were 30, 40, 50-gun ships. So, after running out of targets on the American coastline, he decided, screw it, we're going to France. Sailing to Nova Scotia and capturing British vessels. The Providence was lost, but he sailed back with more ships than he lost. So, soon after, he took command of Ranger and set course to France, where his vessel was saluted by the French Admiral La Motte Piquet, I don't know. Pourquoi?
La Mort Piquet.
The first American vessel ever to be recognized by a foreign power. The event that made him most famous
I love it.
was when he was on route to raid British shipping. Jones' warship, the Bon Homme Richard, named after Benjamin Franklin, Poor Richard, came head-to-head with the more powerful English warship HMS Serapis off the North Sea. After 3 hours of relentless gunfire between the two vessels, Jones slammed Bon Homme, his ship, into Serapis, the British ship, strategically tying them together. So they were locked together. And they shot all their guns into each other after they were locked together. Basically blew each other's sides out. So they were doomed to sink, whichever one surrendered first.
What was the point of surrendering at that point if they were both sinking?
See, John Paul Jones knew that he had the more inferior ship,
Okay.
but he also knew that he was John Paul Jones.
Yes. Yes.
Now, varying accounts of this say that there was a bit of a back and forth with them, and the British ship finally the British finally surrendered after one of John Paul Jones' lieutenants threw a grenade onto the British ship. However,
When they first got entangled, though, the best part of the story.
legend has it that when the British asked if Jones was ready to surrender, he famously responded, "I have not yet begun to fight." After one of Jones's naval officers tossed a grenade onto Serapis, causing severe damage, it was the British that ultimately surrendered.
They had grenades back then?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Oh, I
Yeah,
did
it was
not know
just
that.
it was basically like a cannonball with a fuse on it.
All right, cool.
Yeah. Jones's surprise victory against the better equipped British naval ship had turned him into an international hero. And like I said, he lost the Bon Homme in that fight, but he captured another British ship to sail home in.
Yes.
So you keep losing our ships. However, you keep coming back with a ship. So
Like I said, it is not outside the realm of John Paul Jones to roll in to the friggin' dock and step off of the crow's nest onto the dock.
one of the things he did, I think it was before this big fight with Bon Homme and Serapis, is he went to the town of Whitehaven, where they had a very important naval yard there, and he set it ablaze. 200 years later, the town holds a festival in his honor and pardons him for burning their dock to the ground. After the end of the war, the Continental Navy was dissolved because of lack of funds. Jones set off for new adventures, battling the Turks on behalf of Russia before temporarily settling in Paris, where he made plans to return to America. However, he died of what they believe was kidney failure. His
Probably because of all of the rum.
most likely
Most likely because of all of the rum.
because of all of that. He was 45 years old when he died.
Whoa.
So short life, filled with rum.
Why is the rum gone?
Well, he was Scottish too, so there's probably some of that in him as well. You know, some Scotch.
One of the reasons I love Jack Sparrow so much as a character is because
Of John Paul Jones.
everything about him reminds me of John Paul Jones. like the ridiculous naval tactics,
You're
just,
mad.
just
Mad
insane.
like Jack.
Mad like Jack. Yes. What did he use to tie the tortoises together with? Hair from me back. It screams John Paul Jones to me. Being as familiar with Jones as I am, his history is just awesome.
Yes. He was laid to rest in a French cemetery, but the plot of land was later sold and forgotten. Over 100 years passed before the U.S. was able to recover his remains with the help of the French, and his body was located and exhumed, and to the surprise of French pathologists, Jones's body was excellently preserved. Again, rum.
Rum.
I swear there's no blood in my alcohol level, Ossifer.
Kidney failure exacerbated by a heart arrhythmia.
Yeah, he was definitely poisoned by alcohol.
Oh, yes. Definitely.
Which is why it was so well preserved.
Yes.
There's no blood left. His remains currently are buried in a tomb inside the chapel of the U.S. Naval Academy in Annapolis, Maryland. Now back to that town, Whitehaven. This event was so important that they not only had the U.S. Navy representatives present for this festival, but also Russian liaisons were there because of his acts, because of his service with the Russian Navy. So they respected him so much. They showed up to England to honor him with this giant festival to restore the docks and everything in this town. And Whitehaven offered the freedom of the harbor to the U.S. Navy, where the Navy can send one of its military ships to Whitehaven once a year, and they won't be charged any fees for docking the ship there. All because of John Paul freaking Jones, who drank his life away for his country.
And I believe it's an ongoing thing where Whitehaven one day a year doesn't charge any fees to the U.S.
Yes, that's what I just said.
military.
Yes.
Yeah, ongoing.
They can dock a ship one day a year.
One day a year
with
for
no
free.
fees. Yeah. And this festival is held every year in honor, in celebration of him.
When did that festival start? Do you happen to know?
1999.
Very nice.
Yeah. The Maritime Festivals. Yeah. Moving forward to the Civil War era. Have you ever heard of Charles Sumner?
Wasn't he the one that beat some dude on the
Close. He is the one that was beaten.
Congress? Oh, he was the one that was beaten.
Yes.
On the congressional floor.
I need to admit
Yeah.
that this is a good time to admit that I got a 1 on my AP US history test.
Oh, yes, that's right.
I never took AP US history.
And it shows.
Because I
Is that a
actually
compliment?
aware of history. I'm confused as to the
That
implications.
is the most backhanded compliment I have ever.
Unbelievable.
Thank you, Archer. Senator Charles Sumner of Massachusetts is best remembered for his role in a dramatic and I don't know that his role is necessarily the best choice of words there. It's like it was all acted out.
For
right.
his role.
I'm going to say some things. You're going to act upset. Come and beat me to death. And then, we're going to...
as one of the first human pinatas in Congress.
Yes. Dramatic and infamous event in Senate history, what became known as the caning of Sumner. Just days earlier, Sumner had delivered a fiery speech entitled The Crime Against Kansas, in which he railed against the institution of slavery and unleashed a stream of vitriol against the senators who defended it. In retaliation, Representative Preston Brooks of South Carolina attacked Sumner at his desk in the Senate chamber, beating him with a heavy walking stick until the senator was left bleeding and unconscious on the chamber floor. Tell me again how we're more divided now than we've ever been.
Yes. I think they should bring it back.
Make canings great again.
I seriously, I think before you can put forward a bill in the Senate, you should have to fight a cage match against the opposition.
The longer the bill, the longer the match.
The longer the bill, the longer the match.
Write that down. Write that down.
You have to defend your beliefs with blood. And the fight is televised, pay-per-view.
I feel like we get a lot less.
That would
old,
make C-SPAN
crippled
a lot
people.
more excited.
And the proceeds from pay-per-view replace your taxes if you tune in.
Tonight on C-SPAN, Nancy Pelosi versus Ted Cruz. I am all in. I'm betting on that one.
Well, you got to make it fair. You got to make it somewhat fair.
If you author the bill, you are in the ring.
Well, yes, but you have to make it somewhat fair. So Nancy Pelosi versus Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Woman on woman. Fair. I'll allow it.
I'll allow it.
Yes, weapons are allowed.
And besides, who do you think would be purposefully more violent, Marjorie Taylor Greene or Ted Cruz? In that instance,
I don't know. Either way, I'd love to see it because I can see Ted Cruz just kind of like pushing her. Like, yeah.
Sit.
Whereas Marjorie Taylor Greene, I think would not hold back.
Yes.
Sumner convalesced, returning only intermittently over the next 3 years. He resumed full-time duties in 1859, and over the next 15 years became a trailblazing legislator who left an indelible mark on the Senate and the country. A chairman of the State Foreign Relations Committee from 1861 to 1871, Sumner wielded great influence over the nation's diplomacy, but his tireless efforts in the realm of abolition and civil rights were what truly defined his career. Sumner was among the first members of Congress to argue that the Civil War had to be fought to end slavery as much as to save the Union. In fact, he said the two goals were inextricably linked. He called slavery, quote, the mainspring of rebellion, and insisted, let the national government simply throw the thing upon the flames madly kindled by itself, and the rebellion will die at once, end quote. Yes. He worked tirelessly behind the scenes to prevent moderate Republicans in Congress and in Abraham Lincoln's administration from compromising on the question of abolishing slavery. When President Lincoln issued Emancipation Proclamation on January 1st, 1863, which freed slaves in the rebelling states, Sumner praised Lincoln's actions but quickly added that the presidential proclamation did not go far enough. Only national abolition, immune from action by the Supreme Court, could guarantee an end to the heinous institution, and that meant a constitutional amendment. Mm-hmm. That is a man that had the founding spirit in him. Of, yeah, this is all bad, and that's great what you did, Abe, but it has to be amended as such, so they can't fight this in the courts like they already did 3 times before now, saying slavery is constitutional. It's like he knew. World War I. The Lost Battalion. It's a battalion whose situation went from bad to worse and produced 3 Medal of Honor recipients in the process. The Lost Battalion consisted of several different companies from the 77th Division of the American Expeditionary Force stationed in France. Included in Fateful Mission were companies A, B, C, E, G, and H from the 308th Infantry Regiment, Company K from the 307th, and Companies C and D from the 306th Machine Gun Regiment. During the mission that earned them the name, Major Charles W. Whittlesey of the 308th led the Lost Battalion.
Whittlesey?
Whittlesey.
I think it's Whittlesey.
Whittlesey.
I'm pretty sure that's Whittlesey.
Whittlesey.
I have no idea. I have nothing to add to this.
It's probably spelled Whittle say.
It's probably that. I've heard it both ways.
I've heard it both ways. Whittlesey.
So,
What is the mundane detail, Michael?
he's just a Medal of Honor recipient. What does it matter?
Just a Medal of Honor recipient.
As if he did something important or whatever. I don't know. So part of what made them the Lost Battalion, they were part of a massive campaign known as the 100 Days Offensive. The Meuse-Argonne Offensive was planned as a large thrust into German territory that sought to break through the famed Hindenburg Line, hopefully to end the war that had been fought for 4 long years. This is, again, the war to end all wars, the Great War, blah, blah, blah.
The war to end all wars that led to the war
that continued more wars.
All wars.
Yeah. Early on October 2nd, with the American 28th Division on their right and parts of the corps of the French 4th Army on their left, Major Whittlesey and his men entered the heavily wired and entrenched position in the Argonne Forest with Hill 198 as their goal. As they advanced into the forest, they encountered resistance, but were confident their flanks were secure. Dun, dun, dun. However, late on October 2nd, disaster struck as Major Whittlesey and his men had been creeping forward and cutting through the German forces. The Allied soldiers on either side of them had not been as successful. Word missing. Yep. While the Lost Battalion had captured their goal of Hill 198 and were digging in, fierce German counterstrikes had turned back both the French forces on their left and the other American forces on their right. With Major Whittlesey unaware of these reversals, German forces encircled the lost battalion. So they were now behind enemy lines.
Completely entrenched.
And cut off. Upon learning of their predicament, Major Whittlesey knew he had only two options, to hold or retreat. Unwilling to disobey orders and keeping with the finest traditions of the American armed forces, Major Whittlesey and his brave men declined to give up their position for the relative safety of retreat.
Which the finest traditions of the American armed forces is to flip everyone the bird and then do things you're not supposed to be able to do.
You're not supposed to hide behind the trees. You gotta line up.
You gotta line up. Line up. No. See, you took a turn. Now it's our turn.
You're not supposed to charge yet.
Who fired on the enemy officer? Reprimand that man.
Yes. Seize him.
Seize him.
They instead braced themselves to defend their objective at whatever the cost. For 5 days and nights, the American soldiers withstood the German assault beset on all sides by German gunfire and destructive grenade attacks. American forces attempted to direct an artillery barrage onto the German positions to help them in their defense, maintaining communication through carrier pigeon messages. Although the engagement of artillery forces was successful, their aim was not. While the direct cause is unknown, the American artillery unfortunately started shelling Major Whittlesey and his men instead of the opposing forces. So now they're fighting everyone. Although successive carrier pigeons had been unable to get through, the Lost Battalion released their last bird, Cher Ami, carrying a desperate plea to stop the barrage. Quote, "We are along the road parallel 276.4. Our artillery is dropping a barrage directly on us. For heaven's sake, stop it." For heaven's sake, stop it.
Yeah.
Even though Cher Ami sustained debilitating injuries, she was able to successfully carry the message, although she eventually died from her wounds. Deserves more honor, recognition, and praise than most woke idiots today. Later, yeah, that's right. A pigeon is worth more than most of you. Deal with it.
Yes.
Later, a released American prisoner gave Major Whittlesey a message from the German commander asking the American forces to surrender. Citing the cries of the American wounded, the German officer attempted to appeal to Major Whittlesey's humanitarian side. Unfortunately, that died with him as soon as he decided to keep the hill. While legend has it, the major shouted to the German forces, "Go to hell." I like to believe that's true. Both the after-action report and Major Whittlesey himself stated that he did not reply at all. Instead, treating the surrender request with the silent contempt it deserved. Late on October 7th, after failing to break the American position with one last assault, the German forces retreated northward as the American 82nd Division, farther north, had broken through and threatened to encircle them. After breaking through, an Allied relief force gave whatever food they had to the starving men and immediately began attending to the many wounded. The final casualty count lists 107 killed, 190 wounded, and 63 missing out of the 554 men who engaged in the defense. So more than half were lost in some way, shape, or form. The U.S. Army awarded the Medal of Honor to 3 soldiers involved in the siege, including Major Whittlesey, who was also immediately given a battlefield promotion to Lieutenant Colonel. The men of the Lost Battalion helped keep the Meuse-Argonne offensive alive. The actions of these brave men helped defeat the German Empire, and their efforts should never be forgotten. So there you go. For heaven's sake, stop it. Please stop. On the theme of artillery, a Black Medal of Honor recipient, Lieutenant John R. Fox. What did I do for the summary here? He called... Yeah. John R. Fox. He was on the second floor of a building in an Italian village. German soldiers had overrun the town just before Christmas, leaving Fox and a few other forward observers as the only Americans left. He was radioing, over the radio, he was directing an artillery strike that put several Nazis, but also himself, in the crosshairs. Let's see. Skip to more of the story instead of the summary that spoils the ending. He joined the ROTC program, which at the time was run by Aaron Fisher, a Black World War I veteran, who had earned the Distinguished Service Cross for his time in France. Fox graduated, commissioned a second lieutenant, and was assigned the 336th Infantry Regiment. This was in the days of segregated military, thanks Woodrow Wilson, and the 336th was an all-black unit.
366th.
366 was an all-black unit. He also started training in artillery. Eventually, in 1944, the 366th was deployed to Europe. Fox and others were assigned to the all-black 598th Field Artillery Battalion, another segregated unit. It was December, and Fox volunteered for a Christmas posting in an observation space in Somocolonia, which the Allies had just taken from
It's a fun one.
from the German Wehrmacht. However, the Germans quickly retook the town, using the holiday and disguised soldiers as cover to get into
Someone's cologne.
someone's cologne, Italian style.
Italian style.
Then unleashed heavy artillery that forced the American forces back. That is, except for Fox and some of his fellow soldiers. They stayed in the second floor of the Italian building, where he could track German movements and call in counter-artillery strikes. But the Germans kept pressing in, so Fox kept calling for attacks closer to his position, eventually 60 yards from where he was. The commander of the 598th directly called Fox, asking for confirmation. Fox didn't waver. He confirmed he wanted the artillery strike launched. The last communication from Lieutenant Fox was, "Fire it. There is more of them than there are of us. Give them hell." His Medal of Honor citation noted. After a week of fighting, American forces retook Somocolonia. Fox's body was found surrounded by 100 dead German soldiers, according to witnesses. Fox's remains were returned to his wife, and he was buried in Colebrook Cemetery in Whitman, Massachusetts. He was 29 years old. So, yeah.
29, wow.
29 years old, called an artillery strike on himself to stop a German advancement into a town they just took.
Instead of, taking beloved characters and recasting them as black people, why don't
we do actual
stories of actual, like, this would make a great movie.
Awesome movie.
That'd be an awesome movie.
With the culmination of this being almost the end scene, where the end scene is him getting the Medal of Honor posthumously, finally, years later. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many good ones like that. Like this one, that black slave that ended up in Japan as a samurai. There's a lot of really good ones.
Or even in just the revolution itself, the black guy that was the first double agent for the United States.
Yeah.
Tons of fun stories. But no, let's take all of these European, Denmark, whatever stories,
fairy tales and stuff
that are all predominantly white, because the culture there is white. And change the characters just because, and not actually do a good story with those characters, but just change it and butcher the story.
Yeah. Anyway,
we all go anyway.
I digress.
Yes. Despite his sacrifice and fearlessness in the face of danger, Fox's heroism would be ignored for years. It wasn't until 1982 that he was awarded the Distinguished Service Cross. In the 1990s, the Department of Defense opened an investigation into why no African-American service member had received the Medal of Honor for fighting in World War II, concluding that the virulent racism of the time, thank you Woodrow Wilson and FDR, was the reason. The Department of Defense set about rectifying that, with 7 people identified for Medal of Honor. For his sacrifice to stop a German advance, John R. Fox was awarded with the highest military honor on January 13th, 1997, 52 years after his death. So he would have been 81?
Yep.
For conspicuous, the citation, for conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity, in the risk of his life above and beyond the call of duty. First Lieutenant John R. Fox distinguished himself by extraordinary heroism at the risk of his own life on 26 December 1944 in the Serchio River Valley sector in the vicinity of Somalia, Italy. The Medal of Honor citation read. Fox is one of 94 African-American Medal of Honor recipients. So I'm guessing there's probably around 94 great stories you can tell via movie.
At least.
Probably at least around that.
And that's just the American ones.
In 2021, Fort Sill rededicated a building on site after the late soldier. The new Fox Hall was announced as the headquarters for the 1st Battalion, 22nd Field Artillery. There you go. Also, World War II, Iwo Jima. We all know it for the famous flag raising, which the one that you see on film was actually the second time they rose the flag, because the first time they rose it, the politician that was there to talk about how great it was that he was there with the troops and everything saw the flag raised and said, "I want that flag." But we just raised it. "I want that flag." Said, "Okay, you can have that flag." The Marines proceeded to get a bigger flag to raise for the actual filming of the flag being raised. In kind of a nudge to say, screw you to the politician that wanted to politicize the event. Anyway, Tony Stein. Tony Stein. This is a story of what happens when an Oklahoma toolmaker is dropped on a Pacific beach with the Marines, and he makes the stinger and earns himself a Medal of Honor. He was a member of the experimental and short-lived Marine Corps paratroopers. I guess the Marines decided, since they don't actually have aircraft, a paratrooper division probably isn't the best course of action.
After about the third or fourth one of them forgot to pull the cord.
Oops. Too many crayons.
He flies pretty good for a brick.
They never made a combat jump, but the unit was so highly trained that with a little experience under belt, became as capable in combat as the Marine Raiders. In 1944, the paratroopers were disbanded, but Tony Stein didn't head home. He headed for a wartime legacy that would outlive him for decades. When his unit was disbanded, he was fighting on Bougainville, New Guinea, which is technically in the northern Solomon Islands. He fought an incredible fight at Bougainville, where he is remembered for taking out 5 enemy snipers in a single day. Soon he was transferred to the 5th Marine Division and picked up a distinctive new weapon. From the wreckage of a dauntless SBD dive bomber, Stein pulled out one of the aircraft's 4 onboard weapons. It was an AN M2 Browning 30 caliber machine gun, a variation of the M1919 light machine gun, because it was designed for use in aircraft. However, it was much lighter than its man-portable counterpart and had almost 3 times the rate of fire. You're not using this anymore, are you? Great. I'm going to take it. With help of an armorer, and also he being a toolmaker, it helped him in adding a buttstock to the gun. He also borrowed the sights from an M1 Garand rifle and a bipod from a Browning automatic rifle. This is the Frankenstein weapon of all weapons.
I need that. I need that bipod and that machine gun and that scope.
I'm gonna borrow
and
the sights.
That guy's leg.
Guy's leg. Yes, he was rocking.
I can't believe you got the guy's leg.
It's not for sale. Well, how about that leg? Oh, I'm getting that leg.
I'm getting that leg.
He named the new machine gun Stinger. And even with 100 rounds of belt-fed ammunition in a box, it only weighed 25 pounds.
Wow.
On February 19th, 1945, he stormed the beaches of Iwo Jima with Stinger and a few thousand of his fellow Marines. He advanced inland from the beachhead, among the first to create a defensive perimeter for Marines to land. From there, he assaulted enemy fortifications, of which there were many on the island.
By himself.
Yeah, Stinger allowed him to advance on the enemy pillboxes, bunkers, and caves quickly. Not just one, not two, but three types of fortifications. Beating out the enemy's rate of fire, yes, by at least 3 times.
Strafing them from the ground.
In all, he took out 8 of the Japanese defensive formations. He took out 8. He would have to return to the beaches 8 times to replenish his ammunition. So basically, he runs up, clears out a pillbox, goes back, reloads, goes up, clears out a cave, goes back, reloads, goes to replenish his ammunition. And each time he went, he carried a wounded Marine with him. So he lost a lot of weight from the ammunition and gained 200 plus pounds of a Marine over his shoulders to bring them back to safety. For his push against the enemy and the selfless rescue of his comrades under withering fire, he would receive the Medal of Honor. But neither Tony Stein nor Stinger were done with Iwo Jima just yet. Stein aided his comrades in the capture of Mount Suribachi, from the top of which the Marines would take their most famous photograph, the raising of the flag. Stein was wounded in the assault on Suribachi and evacuated to a hospital ship. While he recovered, his unit continued its advances on Iwo Jima. After Mount Suribachi, they were tasked to assault Hill 362A. Moving up the west side of the hill, they took heavy casualties. When Stein got word that his men were being pummeled by the enemy, he got out of his hospital bed and rejoined them on the island. On March 1st, 1945, he was leading a 19-man patrol to take out an enemy machine gun emplacement when a sniper shot him. He died of his wounds, but his service and exploits were not forgotten. Ohio's governor presented Stein's Medal of Honor to his widow 1 year after landing on Iwo Jima. Dude. How's the war going? Yeah, your platoon's getting wasted. Yeah, no, they're not.
Yeah, no, they're not.
Give me that gun. That's a gun. Give me that gun.
Give me that gun. Hold my hospital food.
I wonder. And you have to know, he was probably doing that same thing again, just charging up there with that gun. And that sniper probably saw him. Was it? No.
No.
No. That had to have been what happened.
It probably wasn't just a calm no. It was more like, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit. No. Yes.
Fast forward to more modern times, Afghanistan. This is a story of Technical Sergeant John Chapman, who gave his life in Afghanistan so that 23 others could live to fight another day. This is the first recorded Medal of Honor event being captured on video. So a little background is a CIA Predator drone hovering at 10,416 feet captured the entire footage of Chapman's battle on March 4th, 2002, during which he sustained at least 16 wounds from gunfire and shrapnel, and is credited with saving the lives of his fellow 23 troops before succumbing to his wounds, earning him a posthumous Medal of Honor, task and purpose reported. So we'll watch the footage here, if I can get the right mouse to do the right thing. TV and cams.
TV. Content warning?
Content warning.
Content warning?
Well, it's from a Predator drone, so all you see is like heat signatures, basically.
I mean, I've played Call of Duty. Those heat signatures go pretty wide at certain
sometimes, yes. So
spots.
Yes. So watch at your own discretion. But it's an incredible event to see unfold. I can't remember if there's commentary with this. I don't know if there is.
Chapman, a U.S. Air Force combat controller, and the SEALs are attempting to rescue their lost teammate. You'll watch Chapman's heroic actions as he saves the lives of his entire SEAL team and then another 18 members of a quick reaction force, earning America's highest award, the Medal of Honor. Chapman and the SEALs exfil their MH-47 helicopter. John is the second individual to exit and immediately moves in the direction of the summit. He can be seen moving off to the right of the screen alone. The team is taking heavy fire from every direction, as indicated by the arrows, as Chapman begins engaging targets. You can see spent cartridges ejecting from his M4. Chapman then begins closing with the enemy, forcing his way upslope in knee and thigh-deep snow. He is constantly under fire as he does this. Chapman's team leader begins to close on Chapman, following his trail through the snow. The dark mass above Chapman is a fortified bunker containing 2 enemy fighters, each armed with AK-47s, who are firing down on the team in the darkness. This bunker will come to be known as Bunker Number 1. To the left of the tree and Bunker 1 is another gray mass. This is a rock outcropping that came to be called the Boulder. Between Bunker 1 and this boulder can be seen the body of slain SEAL Neil Roberts, the man Chapman and the others are attempting to recover.
Back when the U.S. military was no man left behind.
Chapman, still alone and closest to the enemy, pauses to engage targets as his team leader follows him, but never actually catches up with him. Chapman, on his own, now makes the decision to charge directly into the enemy bunker, despite withering point-blank fire. Chapman, now literally on top of the enemy, engages the 2 combatants and kills them, saving the lives of the remaining SEALs. He does this from a distance of no more than 10 feet.
And he's not a SEAL.
These actions, by themselves, earned him his first Medal of Honor. He then climbs into and takes control of the bunker. Having cleared the immediate threat, Chapman is then joined by his team leader in Bunker 1. You can then see Chapman and his team leader engaging the next bunker, known as Bunker 2, which is situated to the left edge of the screen. This bunker, manned by a handful of Chechen and Uzbek fighters, also contains a heavy PKM machine gun, hand grenades, and rocket-propelled grenades. John Chapman is shot twice at this time in the torso and collapses, incapacitated. You are now looking at a new angle, and at the left of the screen can be seen the 2-man fire team and team leader on top of the boulder. Just below it is Bunker 1 with the mortally wounded Chapman. One SEAL can be seen firing his modified M60 machine gun from the hip into Bunker 2 on the right side of the screen until he is struck by grenade shrapnel and tumbles 10 feet off the top of the boulder, collapsing at the feet of his team leader, thus setting off a chain of events that would lead to the SEALs abandoning Chapman on the summit. The wounded SEAL and the team leader can be seen conferring about his injuries. Moments later, the SEALs decide to retreat from the summit because their position is untenable in the face of continued massive enemy firepower. They can be seen moving toward the right side of the screen and passing the body of Neil Roberts. Unfortunately, the SEALs do not pass John Chapman, who is above them and inside Bunker 1. This angle shows 3 SEALs in a triangle. The larger black heat signature is a smoke grenade. Just to its left is a donkey and dead Al-Qaeda fighter killed by Chapman. The steepness of the mountain can be seen as the SEALs begin to slide down the near sheer face. The team leader, desperate for relief and now with 2 wounded teammates, asks for uncontrolled airstrikes from an orbiting Air Force AC-130 gunship. The impacts you see are from 105mm howitzer rounds being fired onto the ridgetop in order to save the remaining SEALs. Because neither the SEALs nor gunship know Chapman is alive, he is experiencing these detonations from his position.
That is ridiculous.
At approximately 5:20 in the morning, Chapman recovers and begins to engage the enemy. Bunker 1 is on the right side center of the screen and Bunker 2 to the left near the screen center. It will never be known what caused his incapacitation and recovery. Of the 2 rounds that originally wounded him, at least 1 was mortal, and at this time he is experiencing severe blood loss and shock. Despite that, he begins his one-man stand against 24 enemy combatants. During this time, Chapman initiates a series of radio calls, many of which are heard by a fellow combat controller and teammate of his and Delta Force operators on a nearby summit. Despite this combat controller's replies, Chapman never acknowledges whether because of damage to his equipment or himself will never be known. This new angle and footage shows Chapman at the top, identified by the green dot under the tree at Bunker 1. The lower center of the screen shows the first enemy fighter who is about to charge Chapman in the hopes of killing the American. The timestamp at the bottom shows it is now 6:05 in the morning and fully light. He's been fighting alone now for 40 plus minutes and has received more gunshot and shrapnel wounds as a result of the fierce combat. This scene shows the second of several enemy charges. In this stunning display of determination and courage, Chapman can be seen fighting hand to hand with the fighter. In the larger screen display can be seen additional enemy moving on to the summit. But right now, John Chapman is fighting for his life. 6 minutes later, in this new shot, Chapman can hear another helicopter approaching the summit. He is in the bottom center of the screen underneath the tree and can be seen in the magnified inset box as he begins his desperate final stand to save the lives of the 18 men on the helicopter. The red dots are enemy fighters. John begins engaging the enemy in multiple directions and is rapidly approaching the last of his ammunition. The helicopter contains a quick reaction force comprised of Rangers, pararescuemen, and another combat controller. It is now 6:13 and the helicopter is short final. The enemy is desperately trying to displace Chapman so they can put heavy weapons or rocket-propelled grenades in Bunker 1 while simultaneously engaging the helicopter. With the choice to save his life or the lives of his unknown comrades, Chapman makes the decision to climb out of the bunker and begin firing in multiple directions as can be seen in the inset. Suffering from as many as a dozen wounds, Chapman is in fact already in the process of dying. As he fights, the helicopter is struck by a rocket-propelled grenade and makes a remarkable controlled crash just below Chapman and the summit. Chapman, now off-screen, continues to cover his comrades as they pour out of the stricken helicopter. Some of them are fatally shot as they exit. These images, with Chapman fighting the enemy at close quarter, are the last to show him alive and in this heroic act, thus qualifying for his second Medal of Honor. Ultimately, Chapman would expend all but the last few rounds of his ammunition, until, finally, after 16 bullet and shrapnel wounds, Chapman succumbs when he is shot through the heart. We will never know his final thoughts or words, but what we do know is his decisions and actions single-handedly saved the lives of 23 comrades. For more information about John Chapman's amazing story and the details about this mission, visit danschillingbooks.com or your favorite book retailer to obtain a copy of the Chronicle of his life, Alone at Dawn.
How old was he again?
He was, let me see. I don't think it says in here how old he was.
Okay. Well, another question I have is, was this ever on the news?
I don't remember seeing it on the news. Mike and I did cover this story before.
Like, this is the sort of thing, like, I don't understand how this was not, like, front page news for,
Oh,
like,
this should have, yeah, because this
for,
should have
like,
been,
month. Like, this should be, like, in the public consciousness, even today.
yes.
You know, like, this is the sort of thing, like, I do not understand.
It's the sort of story that militaries love to have to garner more support for the military from their country. Yeah.
Yeah. And, like, I've never heard of this before.
And at the same time, demoralize the enemy, because look what this one guy did to all of you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, how is this not in the public consciousness is what I want to know.
Yes. Let's see.
Yeah, that's an incredible story. Absolutely incredible.
See, says here, John was always selfless. It didn't just emerge on Takur Gar. He had always been selfless and highly competent, and thank God for all those qualities, said retired Air Force Colonel Ken Rodriguez, who was Chapman's commander at the time. According to Medal of Honor summary, he could have hunkered down in the bunker and waited for the quick reaction force and combat search and rescue team to come in, but he assessed the situation and selflessly gave his life for them. So he gave his life for the men that were sent to save his. He and 6 others lost their lives in the Battle of Takur Ghar. Petty Officer First Class Neil Roberts, U.S. Navy SEAL. He's the initial one they went to rescue. Technical Sergeant John Chapman. Senior Airman Jason Cunningham. Corporal Matthew Commons. Sergeant Bradley Croce. Specialist Mark Anderson. And Sergeant Phillips Vitak.
Yeah, I don't think this was ever in the news because it occurred on March 4th, 2002, and it wasn't released. The footage wasn't released until June of 2019.
Yeah. And Chapman was...
the footage wasn't released till 2019? Mm-hmm. Is that like an intelligence reason? Something like that?
Could be. At least that's what they'll say. Chapman's Medal of Honor citation reads, by his heroic actions and extraordinary valor, sacrificing his life for the lives of his teammates, Technical Sergeant Chapman upheld the highest traditions of military service and reflected great credit upon himself and the United States Air Force. Chapman was originally awarded the Air Force Service Cross until a review ordered by then Secretary of Defense Ash Carter in 2016 ultimately concluded that Chapman's award would be upgraded. He received the Medal of Honor posthumously on August 22nd, 2018.
16 years after his death.
Yeah.
All right, and now I have the audiobook.
And now I have the audiobook. Yeah. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, that's the type of video that just gives you all the proud to be an American type feels.
Yeah. No, it's very inspiring. Like I don't understand. I really don't think I'm anywhere close to that level of bravery because like I don't think I'd be willing to travel for a world conflict like that.
I don't think I'd be willing to travel up the side of that damn mountain for
you got to go rescue this dead guy.
Yeah.
Oh. Okay.
I have to climb a
Did you see how steep that damn thing was?
Yeah.
Like no,
like,
like
holy
seriously,
shit.
If they told me that to help the war effort or something, I had to climb a mountain, there would definitely be some hesitation on my part.
Can't we just ski lift there? Can we
is there a ski lift
right.
or
just fly some drones and shit around and
is there
kill
a
them
paved
before
road
we go
that goes
down?
there? And can I have a car?
Is there a Maverick?
I can fight or I can climb the mountain. I can't do both.
Have you seen me walk and chew gum? Because I can't.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, just
seriously though, this guy is incredible.
Yeah.
And yeah, like we need men of that kind of character. Like that is inspiring to all of us.
Yep. And it's one of those things. So a lot of those same feelings from the first time Mike and I watched this came rushing in. But then from the back of my mind came forward the events from, was it 2 years ago now in Afghanistan? So everything that guy fought for just thrown away with
Because of Joe Biden, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just make it, it aggravates me so much. Things like that. Final
He
story.
was 36 when he died.
36. Thank you.
Yeah.
Final story is much more modern. It was from July of 2022. This isn't a military story or anything like this. This is a pizza delivery guy.
Well, that's quite
This
a
one's
contrast.
a little more close to home.
Little bit.
I order
So-
pizza sometimes.
So this is more so to point out that this kind of behavior doesn't solely reside in founding fathers, military members, and even in losing your life. This kind of behavior can exist in someone as simple as a pizza delivery guy. Nicholas Bostic was just passing by a house in the city of Lafayette, delivering pizza when he noticed the building was burning. Knowing that someone might be in danger, he took a U-turn and returned to the burning house. He couldn't call 911 because he didn't have his phone with him, so he took matters into his own hands. The courageous 25 years old, entered the house through the back door that's on fire with there's no fire department there or anything yet. It was just him. Ran through the back door and ran upstairs to search for trapped people. There he found 4 siblings, ages 1, 6, 13, and 18, and a 13-year-old friend who stayed in the house for a sleepover. Moving quickly, he rushed them outside to safety. However, little did he know that another 6-year-old girl was still trapped inside the burning building. Not thinking about his own safety, he again rushed inside to save the girl. Despite the thick smoke, he found the girl and punched through a glass window so that they could both escape. When the responders arrived, they took Nicholas to the hospital. Thankfully, his injuries were not that serious, and he was soon discharged. I'm glad I was there at the right time, the right place. If the opportunity came again and I had to do it, I would do it. I knew what I was risking. I knew the next second it could be my life, but every second counted. The father of the children wants to repay the brave man for his heroic deed. The dad said he'd love to take me out for dinner. They have wide open arms welcoming me as part of their family, he said. So there you go. Just a little close to home story.
Just a feel-good story.
All of them, in their own way, are feel-good stories. Some with more happy results than others, but all of these stories give proof to the what we learn in the scriptures. Greater love hath no man than this. He's willing to lay down his life for his friends. In Nicholas Bostic's case, lay down his life for people he had no idea about. He was willing to do that. And I think kind of related to things we've talked about before, where behavior like this isn't something that just happens. No. It's something that's a part of you. It's something you learn through childhood, young adulthood.
You need to have these kind of examples that instill those kinds of values on you.
Yes, these traits don't just
like the victim,
magically appear.
Like the victimhood that we claim for literally no reason. That's not the way to create men like this.
It used to be when a house would catch on fire, the community would get together to try to help put out the house as well as the fire department, but also to help the family afterwards.
Yeah.
Now when a house catches fire, everyone hopes that everyone's okay inside, and they hope that the first responders did their job.
And they pull out their phone to
record
to
it,
video it,
and then they never talk to that family again, whether or not the family survived. All because we've been trained that the first responders are the ones that should first respond, even though they can't respond unless you respond first, which means they are not the first responders. And they should not be the first responders.
What do you need a gun for? That's why we have police.
Yeah.
Why do you need a fire extinguisher? That's why we have
Fire
departments.
Same thing.
Yeah. No, and then they also say that, like, defund the police, and then they also say, oh, we can police our own communities. And then someone tries to police their own communities, and they
get upset because it's actually crime.
They want to, put them in jail forever.
Yes, because they refuse to have good values and principles.
So basically, they want criminals to just do whatever they want.
Yes.
And if not, then, victimhood.
Victimhood. But yeah, that is a small sampling of the price of freedom that we so thoroughly enjoy, especially this Independence Day weekend, the 4th of July. Hopefully, listening to this, you took some time beforehand to reflect on the cost it took to get to where we are today, and to also consider moving forward the price it takes to maintain and, in most cases, regain the freedoms we should have. Not only for ourselves, but for our posterity, as outlined in the Declaration of Independence that we celebrate on July 4th, 1776. Yeah, that's it.
Very well put.
Feet. Like it.
Like it, subscribe to it, do all of the things, social media. We're on the Twitters, we're on the Gab, Getter, Locals.
We're not on Grindr though. Don't look for us
Facebook.
there.
Nah. Unless, no, we get kicked off of there real quick if I just did an account to troll people.
That went different than I thought it was going to go.
I had him on a hook for a minute there.
Unless, all right.
Hold
Which
up.
one of you is it?
We gotta talk. Intervention.
Intervention.
Yes, thank you for listening. Hopefully you learned something new and gained a greater appreciation for those that come before. I believe it was Michael Knowles that said at one point to some woke person, we stand on the shoulder of giants and believe that we're flying.
Yeah.
We have to earn this position every single day. So that has been a slice of history with the Naked Apple. Recording ding 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 ding. There, did it.
He's got the clap and he's giving it to you.
Historically speaking.
Historically speaking. Yes. All right, we ready to go?
I'm good. Or do you need to do some show prep before the next one?
I think I have everything already. Let me just double check. Yes.
I'm recording. You're recording.
I'm recording. You're
giving
recording.
them the clap.
Let me just put that on full screen so it's ready for later. And yes, ready.
All right, here we go.